45 minutes to rock and roll in it.
40 minutes right now.
40.
And we are going to be out here at 9 o'clock.
Okay. The next,
Okay, this is one that
I
was
need a gavel.
before Bob.
the comment was that the RS district does not allow for a variety of housing types and shouldn't. And I don't know who the,
That was Bob, and I knew that was the.
so the recommendation here is do not include provisions for that variety in the RS.
In RS, right.
Okay.
Okay?
I was
Any
confused.
commentary on that?
Up above, you said kind of the opposite.
Okay. Let's go to the next green one.
Hold on, they're having a
Jason,
discussion on it. Hold on.
Follow.
Okay.
Another discussion?
Bob, why don't you think that it should have it? Why don't you think the
Because I
RS
think that's where an OSRD or the PD was intended to have different, the RS is single house residential. I think maybe we're getting hung up on the earlier comment I made about accessories
That's what I
houses, that's,
Okay.
So is an accessory dwelling not a different housing type? That's
I
where
think
I
a
was
different housing
confused.
type, to me, would be like an apartment.
He's, Bob is right, and that's what I'll fix it.
So by that comment, we're not precluding ADUs or what?
No.
There, and I don't want to dwell on my construct, but there's a big question, well, where? And what Bob's recommendation that's before you is that mix of variety does not belong in the RS, presumably by others.
Right.
We just want to make sure that we have one district that's
Right.
just, or at least one district that's single-family residential.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. This has to do with where and how manufactured housing create a more supportive solution for manufactured homes as principal and accessory housing types in appropriate districts. And I think the commentary, or the comment was that the UDO allows double wides, but single wides are not. So this is to create a more supportive solution for manufactured homes in appropriate districts.
So are you calling manufactured homes double wides and single wides?
A manufactured home is always going to be, in our case, that which is approved after 1976, which is typically a double wide.
Oh,
But this is making it more supportive to make sure that as long as it meets the building code, the current building code for manufactured housing, we no longer need to define it.
now
That's
you know,
strict.
that's something I'm learning because I'm coming from the north and I did not know that's what a manufactured home, for to me, it
Oh,
was
manufactured
when
homes
they
and
were
trailer.
green, when they
That's
bring.
modular.
Oh, that's a
Modular.
modular. Got it, okay. All right, 'cause I'm going,
Some
manufactured home.
ordinances break out modular and manufactured housing
Okay.
type A or type.
Okay, all
Okay.
right.
This is about trailers.
Any further comment on that? Let's go to the next. This allow a variety of lot sizes within residential and mixed-use districts to accomplish the policies, and this policy must be policies about a variety of housing types. Reconcile conflicts between the measures of overall density and the minimum lot size. There's, if you look in the details, whatever page it is, they aren't lining, they aren't mutually the same. Any comments on that? The next, allow and/or encourage community wells and sewage treatment systems based on factors particular to the property, regardless of the district.
What does that mean?
Right now, there are only certain districts that allow clustered sewage systems. Everybody else has to have an on-site system. But this would mean, this would just allow more flexibility for somebody to choose between an on-site system or a cluster system. Regardless of the district, it'll be more about what the land, the science of the land holds.
Carrie, this will probably come up again in
In water
policy
sewer.
5.
Yeah. It's actually a really good point.
Okay? This is strengthen the language in all zoning districts to encourage green space development. Policy 6.4,
Let's,
to include ways to prioritize green space development over large lots. Allow for consideration of market influences on green space versus large lot development. And
that's very similar to what we were talking about before, and this committee seems to be leaning toward green space type development in whatever plant zoning or open space zoning or whatever it is, this green space clustering versus open space. They're still separate though, the plan development discussion from green space so that we can make sure.
okay? Ready to move to the next one? This include a maximum density, a minimum open space, and lot sizes in the zoning district intent statements. That's so that uniformly in the intent statements, there would be some reference to density, open space, and lot sizes. Does that address the comment or concern that somebody raised?
Bob's is putting it right up front in the intent statement.
Are you ready to move on to the next?
It's like after 8 o'clock, this whole group just,
No.
Come on, postprandial.
maybe we should start our meetings at 8.
Establish criteria for open space based on lot size, number of lots, and other impacts.
That, I was hoping that you would sort of help me with the other impacts.
The comprehensive plan says apply the open space equitably, regardless of the number of units, not just large developments, not just small, but all, and equitably. And then it also, of course, calls for a fee in lieu process.
Yeah.
This is another one that we would read the comp plan just through this one lens to determine what other criteria would be
If a
appropriate.
development is not appropriate to set aside useful open space, then fee in lieu should be available. Okay? Next, apply open space, okay, gets very specifically that apply open space requirements to minor subdivisions less than 5 lots, as well as major.
Yeah.
Okay? Ready to move to the next, and this is in policy 6.6, offer open space credits for sidewalks, bikeways, and trails. Add bikeways to the transportation modalities that qualify for open space credits.
How's a bike? You mean like a bike path?
Yeah.
What's the difference in a bikeway and a
It's
bike
actually,
path?
yeah.
I'm thinking of like a bike lane on a road.
Actually, I thought-
That's not part of development, right?
It could be, if you require roadway improvement. You could have them just stripe it, but so a bike trail on the, is that what you're saying? Just a
Yeah,
biking
I
trail?
think it's about the terminology. It says sidewalks or trails. And the point is just to make sure that it covers all types of horse trails.
Well, we have to include bikes, right, Jason?
Horse trails, bicycle trails, it's all of the modalities.
Okay? assign different credit values to trails that are available to the public or restricted versus private use. So it anticipates two different crediting mechanisms.
Is that kind of like the trail that goes into the vineyard,
Yeah.
I guess, where it
I thought
says
that it had a sign that says,
private
yeah,
property, but it's a
private.
nice trail?
They had the ones off the Greenway
Yeah.
prior to the one that branches to the right.
Yeah, had they been given density credits for that trail, it seemed like there should have
They
been a
would've opened
difference
that.
between whether it was private or public.
Okay, ready to move on to
It's
the
not like
next.
people don't
This is
ignore
in
it.
policy 6.7.
Not meaningful, sorry.
This is, the town should allow some land development for moderately priced housing, consistent with policy 6.1.
A lot of these comments moved up to
Okay,
6.1.
implement this policy through a mix of housing types in the same development rather than entire neighborhoods of moderately priced housing.
Yeah.
Neighborhoods of entirely moderately priced housing. Okay, ready to move on to the next. This is in policy 6.8 about infill housing. Should be architecturally compatible. Include, the main recommendation is include performance standards for infill housing such as architectural compatibility. Okay? Policy 6.9, discourage, the short statement is discourage residential and commercial strip development.
Sorry, can we go back to
What?
6.8?
6.8?
Because I think we need to go back to Bob's about the RS and the, what was it? Accessory housing. Because actually accessory housing is carriage housing and like the mother-in-law housing. And anyway, I think that would be infill housing, wouldn't that be?
I didn't think that's what that was. I thought that was like, if you have a lot, just wondering lot there, then that's what you call an infill, where you can put something in on that lot.
Infill is where there's vacant lots.
There's a vacant
Oh.
lot.
And it's
Okay.
basically.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Carriage
But
house is the same
On,
lot.
on that point, Carrie, we talk about architectural compatibility, aren't there limits to what architectural restrictions can be put on a,
So on a single and two family homes, they
Yeah.
are.
yeah?
So I'll put within the capability of the statute.
I would think that the statutes would allow features such as height, possibly roof pitch, definitely not color.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's limited with.
Things like
It's
that,
basically
covenants and deed restrictions are a better way of doing it than
Right.
EDO.
Right.
size, location on the lot, setbacks. Those
Setbacks,
are all, yeah.
provisions for driveways, parking.
It doesn't mean I shouldn't look for any opportunity to talk about form in this case.
Some communities can define you have to define what infill is to apply it.
Didn't they even have that big fight in Raleigh over their historic district and where they plan to put that
You are
So-
allowed to
new mod house in there where they were trying to keep it to fit in and they won that court case and got to put their
A lot of tear downs happening
house in
in
there.
older areas. Okay, this next policy is 6.9, discouraging residential and commercial strip development. By that, I think, accessing, residences accessing homes directly onto a major minor thoroughfare or something. But this, what is it? Let's see, incorporate small-scale businesses and residential uses in the new planned development type districts. And that leaves you room to, if the OSRD or OSRD IP, as Priscilla's been suggesting.
M.
M.
That's next.
Exactly.
But that's 610 really, but I mean, it kind of.
This next one is specific to cross-access, require cross-access between all parcels adjacent to new development and between all parcels within a development.
Is that addressing it?
Of course, reduces new curb cuts and, okay?
Yeah, I'd like to add a bit to that, just for the cross-access, that cross-access stub should be constructed to the property lines and the easements recorded. Because I think right now, y'all ask for cross-access easements, but you don't require them to build it, right? Is that right?
It depends.
It's like a connection between two properties, just like a drive, like a drive.
In residential development, this stuff has to go all the way to the adjacent property. In commercial development, well, actually, for the most part, we do require it.
You require them to actually build it
To
through?
build the stub, yeah. And I'm trying to think of a
Didn't we have
circumstance
that
where we don't.
discussion in one of our earlier policies where it was primarily emergency access with the breaker gate?
No.
That was in a gated community.
Yeah, gated community.
These are just stuff.
Yeah, this is just so that, so if you have two adjacent parcels, and you create a cross-access between them, it's just a drive aisle, so maybe 20, 24 feet wide. And that just, so say you're at the McDonald's over here and then you want to go to the gas station, you don't have to go out on 220 and loop back in. You can just connect through the parcels, and so it's safer. It reduces you having to re-enter the right-of-way. So,
I'd like to say when appropriate here, because if a stub is required to an adjacent undeveloped property that never gets developed, I'd rather dedicate it
well, yeah, I
for
mean,
when that property is developed.
you definitely need to look at that and look as if you got a commercial piece and maybe it's a single family, still residential house right next door. You don't want to necessarily run a stub into their property and let your water drain out there and let them have to think that you're going to try to squeeze them out or something like that. But no, I mean, you definitely got to use it appropriate, but I'm just saying that during the site plan review, have a mechanism that you can make them build it. So as long as you can make them build it, it's not just an easement, because if you just make the easement and they don't actually build it, then it probably will never get built, or it'll take a really long time until they come back in for another review, and
And
that
I
could be
think
years.
it should be situational, it might, whether it's
Sure.
bonded, it's just platted, whether it's, I mean, there would be different ways to do it.
Any further comment with Ryan's addition? Policy 6.10, encourage mixed-use development in appropriate locations. The green recommendations said include mixed-use opportunities in non-residential zoning districts. They're not explicitly
None of the non-residential zoning districts permit, and I think one of the ones in the comp plan called out was our current neighborhood business district that allows work above units.
Okay.
Should we mention OSRD in there?
That would,
Well,
This,
like in the comp plan, it specifically says it allows accessory, that was my point, in the neighborhood business zoning and limited office. So like in my brain, like the one on 220, if, you know, the shopkeepers wanted to live upstairs, you know, that kind of thing, it would allow for that to give them that flexibility to be able to do that.
It's another option.
Well, it's affordable housing strategy too. If
Right.
you read that,
Exactly.
it talks kind of about it, and
in
then,
large developments.
But there might be existing developments where this could be appropriate.
sure.
We've got to define appropriate locations.
that's key.
Appropriate, very important.
Was, okay. Anything further on policy 6.10?
Should we go over the set-asides, because those are outside?
Yeah, they look like they're significant. Okay, let's, the first comment, I don't know if we can see who.
Gary.
Gary.
Comprehensive plan and the UDO both seem to lack significant desired consideration of environmental sensitivity with regard to both development and open space dedication. Any further comment on that, Gary, if you want to?
Gary, when we talked about open space previously, I think it was policy area 2, we talked about the idea of resources versus open space
Right.
and identifying valuable resources. I think that would address this.
Think about it.
Yeah, the reason why I think we should look at these is just see if there's any recommendations that should be included. Right.
And that has been made.
Next, if we don't encourage minor subdivisions to follow the same requirements as major, can we obtain the vision of a rural character?
What do you envision, Beth? I'm curious about.
Well, I'm just thinking, well, partly when we talked about it, if we don't require like open space or something like that, if we talk about the power lines, if we don't require the buried power lines and stuff, I mean, what's gonna keep, as we get smaller parcels of land, to be developed, then how are we gonna, this vision of Summerfield with buried power lines and trees and setbacks and stuff, and if we don't require minor subdivisions to be following the same as our major subdivisions, then we're sort of, still breaking up Summerfield, so that's all I think by that.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit. Some other stuff.
Well, that kind of goes back to policy 6.5, which we kind of glossed over. Open space dedication requirements should be applied equitably to all residential developments, regardless of their number of planned housing units. But we never discussed a fee in lieu of land dedication if we thought that was a good idea.
We talked about that in our other.
That was, yeah.
And that we've mentioned before in the past, but a little more appropriate here.
Was that part of the comment? I don't know that that was part of the comments this time.
Is
The one.
Is there currently a fee in lieu
It hasn't been developed.
No.
to be developed?
Yeah, this is fine. I don't think any of the committee comments addressed it.
I don't be in lieu of as part of the comp plan, no. That's the statement out of the comp plan, not necessarily,
I think in one of your earlier meetings, maybe several months ago, you
We discussed all.
touched on it and said there will need to be something of an open space fund
Yeah. Yeah.
for the fee in lieu to fee.
Ray, where would it not be appropriate to set aside useful open space? Can you give us an example?
A 4-lot subdivision near Summerfield Road,
Yeah.
Okay.
and instead they're providing a fee that contributes to a new pocket park in that area.
There,
That's shared by everybody.
in some jurisdictions, there may be priority areas based on habitat or slopes and other open space values that is sort of a target area where it's desired to have an open space connecting to other open spaces where this particular 10 acres doesn't connect to any open space whatsoever. And in that case, depending on other features around it, it may be preferable to have the fee in lieu rather than on-site.
It'll still have roadside buffers, zoning, maybe an RS40 zoning district still has large 40,000 square foot lots. But if there's no valuable open space, it suggests that it would contribute to a publicly accessed open space.
If I were recommending something, it would be that it's not up to the land developer, it's a town decision about whether to agree with the fee in lieu.
That helped, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be a better way to, because that would keep it on a case-by-case basis.
It would always have to be,
Yeah, okay.
and based on the criteria, and the town would have to approve of it. Thanks for
Okay, any, there was a permitted uses, in
You
the
missed
table of
Ryan's,
permitted
actually.
uses.
You skipped one.
Oh,
did
there
we?
it is.
So Ryan talked about the traffic going from higher density to lower density.
And I think that's already in the,
Yeah.
The speed demons in his neighborhood, speeds remind me of it.
Okay.
Yeah, John hates us.
The next comment, the PD permitted uses, it relates to that on page 86. Why does PD say may be any variety, types, sizes, types and styles? Why are we not defining the allowed density instead of leaving the density to quality and design? Who will determine this? And who will keep our density low? Does anybody want to speak to
I
that?
think we talked
We
about
did.
density requirements about, right? I mean,
we talked about some criteria for
Okay,
it.
established criteria to go with that.
If I was Brazil, I'd feel upset if somebody didn't spell my name right, but you said that.
The last comment in these
That might
set
be
aside.
So she fights being upset with herself often. So
It says, do we have a multifamily district in the UDO? Is that whoever made that comment?
That's
Okay.
Priscilla
And,
again.
and there
We
is
have
no,
it in here, a multifamily development district on page 87. And I didn't ever remember seeing that before.
That's a development standard, right? Or no, it's a
It
development.
says multifamily development district.
Yeah, I think it's not listed in the, that's got to be
And
another
page
inconsistency.
87, on 86, that plans area development, I hadn't ever seen that chart, or we hadn't come across that I hadn't remembered, so.
So why they call it, they're saying clubhouses, administrative offices, and mailbox?
well, because this is under accessory uses,
Okay, so
buildings and
these are standards
structures.
for accessory uses,
Ah,
and somebody's
okay.
probably took this from another, cut and paste from another, place. And that's one of those review the entire UDO for inconsistency statements.
Yeah.
Well, but this is a good one to point out.
Yeah. I'll put an asterisk by that one.
okay?
It's in red in mine.
Oh,
Is the suggestion delete that then from page 86 while doing the consistency review?
Well, 80s.
Or 87, excuse me, 87. To
We've
be-
never discussed any kind
Yeah.
of multifamily development
No.
district.
No.
Yeah, it's in there.
And that would be green.
Okay.
So we have 9 minutes to do policy area 5. All ready?
Right.
It's not really that important anyway.
Yeah. Water wasn't our number one thing.
Well,
Andrew, to make one clarification, I think it was Bob's question earlier on the water study being developed. That was developed by the first elected town council in March of '99, the year after it was written.
Why did they never change it?
They can't, it's USDA.
They can't, I mean, it had been published.
Then redo it. I mean, it just seems funny that we say it's a bad study, but we've lived by it for all these years.
Well, I'm not
Well,
sure we really
we
have.
finally asked for attention to be called to it.
Yeah.
We have finally asked for attention to be called to it as part of this feasibility study. And yeah.
Okay, so we have a few minutes. Schedule, do you want to put up the schedule and just so we
Let's
can go
put
over
the
that one more
schedule
time?
up. As you reviewed it, I think at your last meeting, you were carving out the possibility, I think you were tentatively proposing April 12 as the next meeting and allowing 3 hours for it.
What does everyone think? Because that was,
We could knock out the water.
3 hours, then.
yeah, do we need 3 hours for the water? Or do we just
Well-
schedule it for 3? If we don't use it, great. But
Exactly.
we will have 3 available.
It since you really worked through all of policy area 6, you'll do your re-review at the beginning and then dive into policy area 5.
12th, Thursday, April 12th.
So do you want to leave it open-ended, or how do you?
Yeah, I think we should schedule 6 to 9 and do policy area 5, and obviously send these comments out from policy area 6 to everyone to review again.
I feel like it would be good to give it its due time.
I agree. Soak in a little bit. I mean, there was a lot of great discussion tonight, another really good meeting. And thank you, Elizabeth, again for dinner. That was really, really good.
In the staff-to-staff discussion, this is a meeting where Carrie will be out, recovering from surgery.
So you're gonna be
Jesse
remote?
Jesse
You're gonna
Day,
remote?
Jesse Day and I will co-facilitate.
We can will you in.
Your surgery, it's the 11th, right?
This is the day after my surgery, so you can try.
Shouldn't be.
There's some paramedics.
You
I
can
mean,
call to me all you want.
the fire department can try and get
If
you.
any of you,
I'm not gonna be answering.
just for the sake of efficiency, if any of you have any follow-up commentary on what you see, as Carrie sends out what you've just done, it would be good to have that, say, whatever the previous Friday is.
So we need to announce this meeting though, because it is outside of our planned day.
It's on the calendar already. I gave it, the town clerk has all these dates.
So instead of the first Thursday, we're meeting on the second Thursday.
You can meet the 19th too.
And I'll be able to, I'll incorporate churches and Carolyn's comments into policy area 5 and send that out for everybody to review again. So the one, I'm gonna give you a replace, consolidated comment for policy area 5.
And then we're gonna go accelerate it once a week.
What was the 18th?
The 18th and the 24th, and one of them's a Wednesday.
The
Wednesday and then Tuesday.
And a Tuesday, and that's to be ready for
May the 3rd.
Tuesday.
May the 3rd was the date to present it to the zoning board, the final product.
Actually,
I got the 12th, 18th, 24th, 3rd, 7th.
What's that gonna entail? I mean, the presentation, are we just handing them the stuff, or I mean?
Yeah. what are
No,
we
so
doing?
so
Yeah, what-
so they're working on a full write-up.
I have,
So what are you gonna be doing?
Priscilla, you're
now,
presenting. We elected you last meeting to be. No, they're doing a full write-up, and then in the next couple of meetings, we'll have a better idea of what the presentation's going to be. So everyone will know exactly what's going on.
consideration just to be
Bill
thinking
and
about,
present it to you.
we talked about this at the last zoning board meeting. The zoning board would prefer, if it's possible, for you